Our guest speaker today is Art Bingham, and he's going to talk about discover your strengths. And I'm going to share my screen so we could just start it going, and it'll make it easier. Let me go back to that.
Mhm.
So there we go. Take it away, Art. I'll scroll as you
Thank
want me
you.
to.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. All right. So let me just start by saying that I am, among other things, a certified life coach, and you see that in the middle of the screen. And my coaching is essentially about helping retirees who feel lost in the freedom finally find what lights them up through deep, honest conversation that hopefully turns restlessness into some kind of purpose. And so that's my overarching kind of goal with my coaching, but it incorporates a lot that I have picked up over the years through my corporate career. I'm a former learning and talent development professional. As you see there, I was always somebody who is serving the internal employees of a company. So, a large company like KPMG, I would have been delivering training to the employees of KPMG. And during those years, not only did I serve as a coach for people, but I think I did a pretty good job as a thought partner. And that's how I'm showing up today, is as a thought partner with you, Christine, and anybody else who joins us while we're online. I'm a lifelong learner, an avid reader in the fields of psychology, cultural studies, folklore, linguistics, religion, pop culture, you name it, I'll read it. Okay. So let's move to the next slide, if you
Yep.
will. All right. So there are a couple of beliefs that I like to divulge to people. These are my beliefs, and I believe they're relevant for anybody who plugs into this recording. The first belief is that we always have choice. And I first encountered this articulated as a belief through the work of Viktor Frankl. Some of the people watching this may be familiar with Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Mhm.
And Viktor Frankl was famous for saying that in between a stimulus and a response, there is always an instant when we have the ability to choose how we react to the stimulus. And that was picked up by a lot of self help books, a lot of pop culture, self development books. And it's something that I truly believe. We always have some choice. It may not be the choice that we want, right? There may be several choices available and they may not all be optimum, but there are always choices that we can make. The second belief that I have up here is that we are all always a work in progress. So we're all always available, able to learn and grow and try new things. It can get more difficult depending on the subject matter for us, but it's always a possibility. And then finally, I lean into the fact that two or more minds are usually better than one. That some of the best things that I've created in the past or best decisions that I've been made have been made in concert with somebody else. And so I like to work with at least one other person and preferably a small group of people whenever I'm trying to figure something out that's difficult. So those are some fundamental beliefs that kind of are they're not kind of, they are definitely behind what I'm presenting to you today. So I want to start by setting a context for you in the realm of psychology. So, Christine, if you'll scroll down to this next screen, you see it says two approaches at the top. On the left is traditional psychology, and on the right, I've abbreviated positive psychology. So, traditional psychology Think back to perhaps you took a psychology course in high school years ago, or maybe if you went to university, you took a gen ed course on psychology, and you learned some general principles. You probably heard talks about people like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, and many, many others. And Maslow, right? Many people are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for example. So that's traditional psychology. Traditional psychology was focused primarily on pathology. So in that field, they saw human beings as troubled beings. Uh, People had problems that needed to be fixed, right? So they were constantly in search of ways to fix problems and achieved some success. I don't know how successful because as human beings, we still have plenty of problems, but they did achieve some success. Near the end of the 1990s, a gentleman named Martin Seligman was given the position of president of the American Psychological Association. And he used that position as an opportunity to shift the focus in psychology from pathology to thriving or flourishing. And that signaled the birth of what we now commonly refer to as positive psychology. So instead of fixing what's wrong with you, people who are studying and doing research and practicing positive psychology instead look to foster the traits in you that you might consider strengths or positive characteristics based on the assumption that those are the things that work well for you. Why not focus on what works well for you and get more of that than instead focus on what's wrong with you, right? And some people would say that whatever you focus on grows. So if Christine, I'm working with you and you're somebody who is let's just say prone to depression, and we focus on your depression, then what we're likely to get is more depression,
Mhm.
right? Positive psychologists would say, no, 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 let's instead look at what's going well for Christine, focus on that, and look for ways to strengthen what's going well. And that's going to help Christine have a much, much better life. Now, positive psychology since the late 90s has branched off into a bunch of different areas of focus. And I'm sure that the listeners will be familiar with some of these if any of them are in the world of life coaching, or if any of them read self help books or self development books, they've encountered some of these subjects. So if you'll scroll to the next slide, I've listed several of them. One is subjective well being, right? So psychology attempts to be as scientific as possible when they're studying things. So they look for signs of well being and measure for signs of well being. So it's a cool aspect of it. I think the therapy stuff doesn't always feel like it's grounded in statistics, but positive psychology is always grounded in statistical research and findings that have been proven and then repeated. So subjective well-being, what are the elements of well-being and how can they be measured? Meaning and purpose is another area of study. People know that having a sense of meaning, having a sense of purpose is something that feels good. And so positive psychologists have spent time looking at that field. Grit, very popular book just
Mhm.
titled Grit, right? Grit and self control came out of positive psychology and gratitude as well. There are lots of books about gratitude, and It's hard these days to find somebody that hasn't heard of gratitude practices and the notion that if we become aware of our what we're grateful for, it tends to have a positive effect on us. And I could say more about that, but let's save that for another time. Forgiveness and the power of forgiveness is another area of study in positive psychology. Not just forgiving others, but also forgiving yourself for things that you think you screwed up in your past and how that can have a positive impact. And finally, for today at least, I think the list goes on, but for today, character strengths is an area of study that has grown out of the 1990s as well. So we're going to focus on character strengths specifically. And I have here a quote from Martin Seligman. That's the gentleman I told you that was the president of the American Psychological Association. He made the claim that the good life consists of driving happiness by using your signature strengths every day in the main realms of living. And of course, he then goes on to talk about what are the main realms of living. But I'd like to kind of introduce that concept in a way that I first encountered it years ago. Some of you, and Christian, you may have heard of the book Know Your Strengths. Have you
I think
encountered
so,
that book?
probably a while back.
Yeah, back around the same time as Martin Seligman, when he was sharing these concepts, the what's the name? The Gallup organization
Mhm,
started publishing their research, and they were saying something very similar to what Martin Seligman was saying. And they positioned it as know your strengths. And what they contended that, okay, if if I report to you, Christine, we're working in a corporation and you want to get the best performance out of me, you're going to get better performance out of me if you help me identify my strengths and we find ways for me to leverage those strengths more and more.
mhm.
As opposed to if instead, as my manager or my director, you look at my weaknesses and you say, let's focus on your weaknesses. The end result of focusing on my weaknesses is I get to be okay at doing something that's a weakness. So you're getting okay performance out of me. Whereas if you focus instead on my strengths and strengthening those even further, you're going to get stellar results
Mm,
from me focusing on my strengths. So that's the way the Gallup organization pitched the work within corporate America. And it made sense to me, but I was looking for a broader approach to things because even when I was working full time for a corporation, I didn't like the idea that they dominated my time. There's more to life than just my KPIs at work, right?
mhm.
There's lots that needs to be dealt with, and so I found eventually the positive psychology work. Now, the strengths that both organizations listed are not identical. There's some crossover, but I think it's because Seligman is looking at life in general that it shapes the strengths that come up. Now, these have been picked up by research. He didn't just sit down and willy-nilly put together a list of 24 values or strengths. He researched it and looked for things that were considered valuable characteristics or traits around the world, cross-culturally. And he came up with a list that shows up on this next screen. Now, this screen, it isn't showing full screen, so it's going to be difficult for people to see. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to go back to that. Okay, that's a little bit better.
I blew it up a bit and it didn't cut it off, so we're okay there, I think.
Yeah, okay. So if you'll see, there's essentially six different categories of strength, and we don't need to go into those right now. But the top of each box, then followed by little bullet points, are the 24 strengths. So you see creativity, and then going down in that column, creativity, curiosity, judgment, love of learning, perspective, bravery, perseverance, honesty, zest, and so on. There is a way for you, there are two ways you can approach a list like this. And I shared one of them with Christine earlier, so we'll reference that next. If you'll scroll down one more screen, I made a QR code that will take you to the Values in Action, or VIA, Character Strengths website.
That's the test I took, right?
That's right. So
Okay.
on that site, if you go to where this QR code leads you, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner it says take the free assessment. So Christine, you took the assessment. Can you tell me roughly how long did it take you to complete it?
Oh gosh, maybe 15 minutes.
Okay.
Usually those tests online I breeze through really quick, but I think the point is they don't want you to think too deeply. They want your initial reaction, which
Mm-hmm.
is more instinctual. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say maybe 15 minutes. You answered a bunch of questions and I got my results. And um, I think overall I was not surprised by most of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting though, how they ranked
Good.
everything. So
Okay. Well, we'll go back to that in a moment. But for now, if you'll scroll back to the previous screen,
okay.
we'll want to just hover here for a little bit of time so that people who are watching can look at the values, and if they want, they can choose on their own their top five, right? So, values clarification is something that's totally subjective. Some people respond well to seeing the entire list and then just getting the freedom to pick and choose, right? Like, I think these are my this is what I value the most, right? I value love of learning, for example. That's tops on my list, and I would know that without taking an assessment. Humor is also very valuable to me. Without humor, I don't even want to get out of bed. So that's over in the far right of the list. So you can, if you're watching this now, you can certainly just choose the top five, or you can go to the QR code and take the assessment for free for 15 minutes. And that will generate a report that shows, among other things, your top five. I believe it gives you a complete ranking of the 24. Is that correct,
Yes,
Christine?
I was just gonna open mine up. I'm not sure if, oh, here's mine. So
Do you
yeah,
want to share that just for a sec so you can show
it
people if
does
you're
show all 24. So my
okay?
top ones are curiosity, honesty, creativity, appreciation of beauty, and excellence and humor.
Okay,
What
great.
that means, I'm not sure, but I'm
Right.
sure if someone's looking for a direction in life, it could help them.
Yeah, so here's how I use these. Well, let me I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's
Okay.
scroll down past the QR code.
Oh, let me go back to that screen. Hold on.
Hmm.
Uh, Pass the QR code now.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay, let's go one more. Sorry, I did double it. I thought so. Okay,
Okay.
so when I use these, right, first of all, I would say what the assessment does is it highlights the top five that seem to be indicated by the way you have answered questions. It does not prevent you from using any of the other 19 that are listed. Martin Seligman and his cadre of psychologists would say, Christine, you have all 24 of those within you. You have access to those. And it's possible for you to develop them if they're not naturally near the top of your list. It's also possible for you to look at something that's at the top of your list and choose not to use it anymore,
Hmm.
right? So for me, I'll give you an example how that might play out. Humor is my second on the list. Working in corporate America with um, the partners and the C-suite of an accounting firm is not a place where humor comes into play a lot,
Not at all.
right?
Speaking as an
There,
ex-accountant, yeah.
yes, right? No, we're talking numbers, we're talking about people's income, we're talking private stuff. This is not funny, right? So I had to intentionally just turn off humor in those situations, and I'm free to do that. I wouldn't have done well if I'd have gone into a meeting and said and start yucking it up, and then when the CEO looks at me cross-eyed, says, "What's this joker doing?" It wouldn't fare well for me if I said, "Well, hey, sorry, but humor is a value to me, and I got to use it." Or I can't help myself. Well, if I can't help myself, he probably wouldn't want me in some meetings, right? So um, it's you can choose to use or choose not to use. But one thing that I would ask people to think about is for us, right? We're on Skool right now. So presumably everybody who watches this will be a member of Skool and they'll be a member of your community in Skool. And they're probably trying to make a go of having a community of their own, just like I am. And one of the questions that you could ask yourself is, okay, which values do you think will help you succeed on Skool? So scroll back to those values, Christine. All right, what would you say when you look at these? Creativity, bravery. Well, I won't read them all, but I'll let you just look at them. Which values do you think will help you with your school community?
Or are you asking me or just in general?
Yeah, just pick one. Or we can do either that or we could go with your top value. Like what was your top value?
My top value was curiosity.
Curiosity. Okay, that's easy because it's near the top left.
Yeah.
Interested, explores new things, open to new ideas. All right. Well, how do you think being aware of curiosity as one of your character strengths can help you succeed with your school community?
Being interested in the people that are joining, what's going on in their lives, how I can help them, um, maybe coming up with different classes or modules, um, finding new ways of doing things. Again,
Hmm.
I'm the idea person. I could sit down and write a million ideas. Then
Hmm.
one of my other, downfalls is probably somewhere else on this list about not acting on it. So
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Well,
curiosity can get very far.
yeah. Well, so let's tease that apart a little bit. So the first thing you said was being curious about or getting to know the people in your community. How does that help? How can you use your curiosity there?
Well, if you have a community trying to help people or teach them X, have they done X before in their lives? Why are they interested in X? How can you help them, knowing from where they're coming from, get where they want to go?
Hmm. Okay. And how might you foster curiosity in general as a value that shows up in your community?
Um, Gosh, now you're putting me on the spot. No.
Hmm.
um, Maybe having a bunch of different modules with different topics to see what they're interested in. Someone might say they're interested in A, but they really want to see B, or they're watching, spending their time on a video doing C. Just putting those ideas out to them too, to help them because maybe some of them are curious. Maybe some of them have too many ideas. Maybe some of them have no ideas. And by putting everything out there, you're helping them, like in my case, narrow down and find their one path, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. I really like that you shifted it. At first, I thought you were talking specifically just from your standpoint, right? Being curious about others. I love that you made the shift to others might be curious, right? And
You
I
know,
think that's so when we think about these values, right? Ideally, if I were to meet somebody for the first time and they had stumbled upon your school group and they asked me, "Well, what's Christine's community all about? Describe it to me." Hopefully, there would be some aspect of curiosity in there, right? I might say something like, "Wow, Christine's community helps me explore new things," just to use the language that's on that chart,
right.
right? We want, if we're truly leaning into our top 5 character strengths, then it becomes very obvious to others what our character strengths are, and they're drawn to that, right?
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, so
So that
so
could be
given
used as a
that, right?
distraction from others.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, so given that, right, what what does that bring to mind for you after hearing me say that about curiosity and how it might be leveraged by you?
I need to redo my about page.
How so? Why? Say more.
Um, let's see. I'll have to throw curiosity and what's in there now into my two best friends, ChatGPT and Claude, and say how I can just include that. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but kind of provoke some more thought from people looking at my about page. What it might do for
Mhm.
them. How what it can help them with.
Right. So maybe you take it upon yourself to pique people's curiosity,
Hmm.
right? Curiosity is something that you value. It's a character strength of yours. And so you want to pique others' curiosity. You might want to satisfy their curiosity. You might want to generate more curiosity, right? There's lots of ways that you could approach that. So that's by the way, what I've just done with you around curiosity is the stuff of coaching, right? When I coach around character strengths, that's how this happens, right? As we uncover them. I don't have the answers. The answers need to come from you, right?
Hmm.
Those are your character strengths, not mine. Well, curiosity might be one of mine, but this is your list, right? So
Right.
we're exploring how do these work for you, right? Now, if you look at this list, right, so we know that we could find ways to use curiosity, but when you look at the list, do you have a sense of what character strengths would be clearly useful in school and creating a community?
Gosh, you could probably, in one sense, say all of them. Um, teamwork, kindness, social intelligence. You're working with other people. You're building a community of
Hmm.
like-minded people, hopefully. So there's going to be many of these. I don't know if each
Hmm.
column means something, but pick one from each column and build from there.
You could do that. Absolutely, you could do that. So we could pick. Let's pick one that maybe isn't as obvious. How does love help one with a school community?
Well, if you don't love people, you shouldn't be involved in here at all.
Good point.
Frankly,
Good point.
yeah,
Right.
where's bluntness on this list now?
There you go, bluntless, right. Well, but I mean, really in my mind, right, love, um, warm and genuine, sure, I would wanna be warm and genuine in my community, which would mean I'd be welcoming to people,
Mhm.
values close relationships. I don't know about you, but for me with school, that's hard. I
It is,
think
'cause it's all online.
school plays it's all online and school is kinda, like, predisposed to the numbers game, right?
Mhm.
How many people are in your community? Well, okay, Christine, how many people do you have in your community? Do you know off the top of your head?
152.
152. How, close are you to those 152 people?
On a scale of 1 to 10, probably 1,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, because it's really hard,
And you're my
but
best friend, Art, you know?
there we go. And, but, and we've never met each other except online. How about that? Yeah. Well, so there's lots to deal with here, right? So it poses questions. This chart for people who are watching this, you can work this chart, right? You can really think about these things. I
Mhm.
think it would be a valuable conversation, Christine, if you and I were to sit down and try to come up with ways that this values close relationships aspect of love shows up in your community in a way that doesn't mean that you've got to work 75 hours a week, right?
Right.
Which is at least what it would require for you to establish a close relationship with 152 people, right?
Oh, totally. Considering that in most school groups, there's a high percentage of people who don't engage, they're lurkers, or they just sign up and never participate. So,
Hmm.
I mean, statistically, you're down to a smaller group, but that's still hard to do, like I say, without working 24/7 at it.
Hmm. Yeah. So that would be a hard one. Some of
Mhm.
these are easier than others,
Yeah.
but all of them I think are valuable, right? Because I don't know anybody who would say, "Oh, I don't want to go to a place where there's love present." Right? No, no, that's not for me, right? They want to go someplace where there's close relationships available. That's the whole point of school being a community, right? That's the
Mhm.
community focus. Okay, let's scroll down a bit. I don't want to belabor this. I'll make a couple other more points about this.
Yeah, I go past here.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, so really the bottom line is this what to do with it, right? I would say in life in general, and certainly when it comes to, making a few bucks on a platform like School, you want to use your strengths intentionally, not just instinctively, right?
Mhm.
So curiosity is something that comes natural to you. And what I would say is that if you occasionally stop yourself and ask, how am I living this value or this character strength? How might I show up as more curious? How might I foster curiosity? How might I promote curiosity and help others become more curious? That's going to help you. And Martin Seligman and the folks in positive psychology will say, absolutely,
Mhm.
that will help you, not just with school, but with life in general,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
then my second bullet point is important as well. It's not gonna do you a whole heck of a lot of good, Christine, if you show up as curious 1 day a month, right?
Right.
We want these to be your signature character strengths. So find new ways to use that strength every day. Then, when possible, I wrote stack your strengths. And what I mean by that is, okay, maybe you get curiosity and you've got perseverance. All right. Can you stack those? What's a way where you can combine curiosity and perseverance? How can you use love of learning and humor, right? Kind of
Mhm.
bring them together. That's what I mean by stacking them, right? And then I would say, rather than on a place like school, trying to be someone that you're not. You're better off creating your persona on school so that it matches who you are and what your character strengths are. So you show up as Christine, who values these 5 things, as opposed to, I don't value this one, and but I'm gonna work it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Right. You
Okay.
could have find out you're in a totally wrong place for yourself. Maybe
Yeah.
you're trying to be one thing and you're really not.
Right. Right. That's not, and that certainly doesn't lead to fulfillment or a situation where you're going to thrive, which is what using these character strengths is all about.
Mhm.
It's all about finding a way for you as a unique individual to actually thrive, to flourish, to do well. And what's included in thriving and flourishing depends on each individual. Maybe it includes running a successful school community. Maybe not. Maybe it's all about writing a book or painting a picture. Doesn't matter. Or just making a few bucks on the side.
Mhm.
That's fine too. Okay. I don't remember what my next slide says. What do we have? Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Claude.
So our buddy Claude,
Mhm.
right?
Our
So
friends.
I asked Claude, all right, tell me what 5 character strengths do you think are needed to be successful on school?
Hmm.
And it said, and we can kind of scroll through, zest, right? So that's energy, right? You don't want to go into well, I don't know about you, but I don't want to go into a school community where the speaker is talking like Eeyore. And welcome to my school community. We're going to have so much fun. No, you want one that incorporates zest, right? That
Mhm.
keeps engagement high. Social intelligence is important, right? Now, that's really hard given that we're interacting on camera and then also via chat. So, our ability to kind of read how the others are reacting and responding and what their wants are, that's difficult, but being attuned to it as a leader of a school community is absolutely going to help you. Okay. Let's scroll down one more. Leadership, someone who's showing clear leadership, showing up as a guide, right? Especially if people are paying, they want you to have a sense of where you're taking us, right? And that, again, I want to fall back on something that I said time and time again in my corporate career. There's a real distinction between leadership and management. Management is about getting people to do things. Leadership is about inspiring people to do things. And I think, especially in a community like a school community, you can't manage your people. You have to inspire them, right? Hope has to be there. So if you show up and you say, "Hey, welcome to my school community. We have a lot of fun. There isn't a way you're never going to make any money on this. There's absolutely no way to make money online, but we can have fun." You're not given much hope. And Christine, I would say that you do a pretty good job in what you write of
Thank you.
communicating to people, "Hey, we're not," because you come up, you're saying, "I'm not talking about making 5 million bucks here. We're looking for something smaller. And I've made money online. You can make money online too. Let me show you how." So you're giving hope, right?
Thanks.
And yeah. So let's look at
I
the
tell
last one.
everyone what I've been taught too, that it's all about what's the transformation, no matter what kind of, group you're in, from,
Hmm.
hobbies, I'm pottery stuff to, high level stuff. It's like, what's the change people are going to get? What's going to happen to their lives? How is it going to help them? So,
Hmm. Yeah, that makes good sense. Okay, I think there's one more. Oh,
couple
two
more.
more.
Okay.
Creativity and perseverance. So you've got creativity down,
Oh
but
yeah.
perseverance is important.
Mhm.
And for me, I think I shared this with you when we first spoke about this. Perseverance is listed as my 24th out of 24 strengths.
I'm gonna go back to mine. It was at my bottom.
Yeah. So but I
Oh
get
yeah,
it.
mine's 23.
23. Okay. So, but I think we understand, right? For this kind of community to work, you can't just be there occasionally.
Right.
You have to put in the time and the effort day by day by day, step by step by step. That's what makes someone successful, not just in an online business, but I think that's what makes success in life.
Hmm.
I just read an article that was shared with me. Um, a high school buddy of mine is an astronaut. He's been to the space station at least twice, maybe
Wow.
three times. And when we were in high school, he was a great guy, but I never would have said, "Oh man, you're destined to be an astronaut," right? Nobody in the 1970s, 1980s was saying that to anybody, right? But in this newspaper article, he cites perseverance as what got him from being a kid in high school who thought maybe he might play baseball at the college level, all the way to to first a fighter pilot who was one of the test pilots for the Phantom uh, airplanes, and
Wow.
then an astronaut that's been to the space station twice or three times. It's all perseverance. So
Cool.
it's very important. So I sent him a message and let him know I was in awe of him. Uh, and as I said earlier, all of these are within us. So I may not naturally lean into perseverance, and perhaps you don't either, but we can intentionally try to persevere, right? Just being aware that it's something that will be helpful helps us try to kind of live into it. So this is where I'd want to say that when you get an assessment result, there's a tendency for people to think, oh, well, this is who I am. So it's saying I can't do that. And that's not the way self assessments work. All that the self assessment results is saying is that this is how you're claiming to show up most naturally. But you could choose, remember my first belief, we
Hmm.
always have choice. You could choose to show up as somebody who perseveres, and it could absolutely help you with your community on Skool.
I was thinking about perseverance, where it's toward the bottom of my list, but I could say in some cases, I have zero perseverance. In other cases, I'll hang on to something like a dog. I think it depends what it is, what you're doing. So
Yeah.
even it's not my top trait, it could be depending what it is. So it's
Hmm.
like you said, it's in you though. It's there.
Right. Right. Okay, I think I have one more slide.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is just a little blurb about me, right? I've got an ebook out on Amazon that's dirt cheap. I think it's $2 or $3. It's essentially around my niche area under retiring and finding fulfillment. I've got a Substack account, so you can follow me there, just at Art Bingham. And anybody who's interested in coaching, I first give a 30-minute freebie so that we can kind of assess each other to see whether or not we'd be able to work well together and get the kind of results that you're looking for. And that's freebie. You can always go to personalpathcoaching.com and you'll find my contact information there. Or for people here who are in Skool, they could just find me on Skool as well. Should be easy.
Right. I'll also link on our page for this replay so people can find you too, Art.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine.
Sure.
Okay,
Do we have more
there
to
you
go
have
over?
it. Yeah, there's a little more in here that I shared, right? So If you're interested in broader application
Okay.
of the strengths, right? Go ahead, scroll down. That's
Okay.
fine. Just there are these three kind of categories, right? If resilience is something that you want to work on, right? So if you're sometimes life can be hard, right? And so getting hit and bouncing back up is an important strength. So if resilience is something that you're trying to build, then strengths such as perseverance and self-regulation, research is showing that those are good strengths to focus on. If you're really primarily looking for well-being and happiness in your life, you want more of that, then zest, hope, gratitude, and love show the strongest and most consistent ties to those. And then if you're still working and you're looking for workplace engagement, like you really want to get into your work instead of waking up in the morning and dreading going to work, then traits like fairness, honesty, judgment, and perspective are especially helpful. So those are just some research results from the field of positive psychology that I tagged on to the end. Okay, I think that's it.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, those are just junk slides. Sorry, I didn't remove the junk slides.
do you want me to scroll through them or not?
No, don't scroll through them.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, this is really interesting, Art, and I learned a lot. You put me on the spot, but that's okay because I'm
I
talking.
was going to put other people on the spot, but we didn't have anybody else join
Yeah,
us, so it's
I
hard to
thought
do
we have
that.
some, but people say they show up and they don't, so that's okay.
I know
But
that's
this
okay.
will be for anyone who didn't show up. This replay will be in the classroom module. I will have links to all Art's info, and he's a member, so DM him if you need anything else. Hopefully that's okay, Art. And
Wonderful. Yes.
this was really interesting, and I'm going to go and rework some things and look at my traits again and reevaluate my life.
Well, give me a call if you'd like. I'm here
I'm,
for you,
I'm
Christine.
going to stop
Just reach
sharing
out.
this, and then I'll go back to just the big screen. Okay,
Okay.
where do we go now? Hold on. It disappeared. Oh, there
Mhm.
we are. All these different buttons. It's different than Zoom, so
Yeah, it's get it being fluent in multiple platforms gets more and more difficult.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So